My spouse is the first person I turn to in times of success or in times of trouble. Your spouse should never be the only person you turn to. They shouldn't be the only relationship you have. You need connections with multiple people. But your spouse should always be your first person. There's something about being in the know. We all like to hear the secret. We all like to be on the cutting edge, to get the phone call about the announcement that's coming tomorrow. We all enjoy that. Having that kind of secret kind of concept, having the idea that I'm your first person builds a closeness. It creates a kind of intimacy with one another. But not only that, there is an emotion in the first telling that you don't necessarily have in another telling. If you're excited about something, the first person you tell about the raise that you got, about the success that you had, about the good thing that happened at golf or in tennis, the first person you tell gets the fullness of the emotion. The second person gets a little bit, the third person gets a little bit less, and then the fourth person gets a much colder kind of retelling of what's going on. The same thing is true in the midst of trauma. The first time you have to tell somebody the bad news, the sad news, there's a rawness that is there. As somebody who regularly does funerals, if I'm burying somebody who's really close to me, one of the ways that I make sure that I don't just completely collapse in the funeral, totally break down, I can show some emotion, but too much emotion would literally become a distraction, a hindrance to what I'm trying to accomplish. One of the ways that I train myself to hold it together in the midst of the funeral of somebody I deeply love is I go over it 4 or 5 or 6 times. And in so doing, I kind of chip away some of the raw emotion so that I can tell the story in a little bit more objective and removed concept. That is useful when performing a funeral. It is not useful in dealing with a relationship with my spouse. Our spouses need to see the rawness. They need to feel the emotion. They need to know that they are on the inside of what is going on. If you begin to find yourself turning to somebody else in front of turning to your spouse, of telling your spouse, instead if you immediately go to a friend or a coworker about the issues that are going on in your life, instead of your spouse first, that is a red flag. That is how emotional affairs begin. That is how the friendship of a marriage begins to break down and erode away, and the closeness is lost. And whenever your spouse is no longer your first person, that means the marriage is actually in trouble. And so be intentional. Be intentional about saying the good things and the bad things to your spouse first so that they can get the fullness of who you are and everybody else gets the leftovers of who you are. Instead of giving the leftovers to your spouse, give the leftovers to others. Give the spouse your best of who you actually are. And if that is already a habit that's in your relationship, nurture that. Be intentional about it in every way. Restrain yourself from telling others. Tell your spouse first, and then go about your other relationships however is necessary. If you will make your spouse first, you will have a stronger friendship. A stronger friendship will lead to better partnership, which will lead to deeper intimacy, which will make your marriage work.